We have some Division 2 benchmarks for PvP, and we're going to go over three things, three different FPS settings, some benchmarks for 4 different graphics cards for the 1060, 1660 up to the 2060, and then we're going to do on the benchmarks on the PvP maps, so the 4v4 maps. So we have all of that, and let's start jumping into it. So we had a couple OBS issues that limited by 10% for Division 2 for some weird reason, so we just recorded with a phone, and we get to see some boot times. Actually took about a minute and 5 seconds to actually boot into the game, and then another 17 or so seconds to actually then once the character screen into the game. So there is that every time you want to log in or every time you crash, which didn't happen too much, but we get to see other things like actual some graphics settings. So we did 3 different settings here. We did, first up, we did Ultra. We did most of the testing on the 2060, and then we did Medium, and then we also did Medium Low. So we turned off some shadows and then some fog settings, some light, some reflections, and some blur effects that didn't really help for PvP benchmarks to get up to 144 FPS, because that's why you're here. And we also lowered some foliage, other settings too. So there is that. And then we did both the benchmark and then again the PvP maps. So what we have here is our bench system, a 9900K, 5 gigahertz. The other system specs are up there if you're interested. And here are the different prices of the cards. All of the 460 cards are factory overclocked between 3 and 5%. And then we added another 8% to the base clock as well as the memory. And then the 2060 was the only one who got about a 5% extra because it didn't overclock as well. So those are the different prices right here. Here's what we actually got it for, 208 for the 1660. There was a 5% off. And then the MSI one was around 210. So DirectX 12 is what we did most of the testing on, and then the 1419.35 drivers. And I guess that leads us into some of the benchmarks. So first up, we have the different, let's start off with the benchmarks. So we get to see the 1060 on the, I think we might have, here we go, here's the 2 different numbers. And then we get to see the 1060, this is on the Ultra. We're going to start off with the 2060. So this is the on the Capital Ruins map, which is 68 to 35. Let's make sure that's correct. Capital Ruins on Ultra. So this was the benchmark. Here we go. So we got about a 68 to 95. So this is the 1% low, so it would dip down and you get about around 95 FPS. And then we lowered it to medium, which boosted us to 155 in the benchmark. So that's definitely 144 hertz overclocking for monitors. So that's good. And then medium low, we got even higher. So shadows off and everything. So 180, that was another 25 FPS. So that was pretty good. So that's where we tested most of the cards on because we were shooting for 144 FPS. So the 1660 Ti on medium low got around 153, so you're good with a 144 hertz monitor. And then the 1660, the non-Ti, was just below that 144, so maybe one setting extra you could tick down and you could get a pretty average rock solid 144. And this is 30-second benchmarks. This was the actual this was the 90-second benchmark for the regular test. We'll go over the PvP ones, which is a 30-second benchmark in just a minute. So we had the 1060, which was 117, so you're not quite going to get that 144 FPS. You'll have to lower everything down to the lowest, and then you still might not make it. And then just an extra little number we threw in here. This is the 3840 by 1080 screen, so this is like 2 1080p monitors, and then we dropped it down to 104 FPS. So we lost about 74 FPS, and this is the 2060. So if you want to get that ultra wide and see around corners and get ready for those enemies a little bit better, you'll be still getting 100 FPS, which is pretty solid, which I think is pretty good. And I guess that leads us into the next benchmarks, which is actually the PvP benchmarks, which is the 4v4 maps. So the 3 maps actually did different performance-wise, and then so we tested everything on the Capital Ruins, which was the middle range. So the Stadium map was at 194, it was the best optimized map, and 152 for Georgetown, which was the worst optimized map, and then Capital Ruins got 179, and this is all on the 2060. We tested it out, and again, this is the medium-low settings. And then on Capital Ruins for the 1660 Ti, we got 145, so you're hitting that 144 hertz. And then on Capital Ruins for the 1660, we've got 131, so just a little bit low. And then the 1060 down closer to 100, so 108 FPS. And then here's your 1% lows for each of the cards. And then we had again a 105 for the double monitor setup, basically one ultra wide, mega wide monitor. So pretty crazy numbers. And some percentages, we got the 1060 to the 1660 was about a 17% increase in FPS. And then we had another around a 12% increase up to the 1660, and then an 18% increase all the way to the 2060. So if you're willing to pay another, it was what, $210 for the 1060, $220 for the 1660, and then $10 more for the extra overclocked factory cards. And then the TI is $280, and then $350 for the 2060. So those are the price increases and then the percent increases. So pretty good overall. So you'll be able to get 144 hertz on pretty much the 1660 cards, and you might want to get that a little bit extra. And again, these are overclocked, so you have to overclock between 5 and 8%, and you'll get roughly similar numbers in PvP matching. So that is the numbers there, so pretty good. The PvP map balance was pretty decent. The stadium in Georgetown had the second levels in a lot of the places, so you could turtle a lot more, and it was pretty difficult to get people out once you had, because you could only go up ladders or you had to go all the way behind. So it was pretty difficult to get teams to move together to actually retake the high ground. But the Capital Ruins map, balance-wise, there was a lot of even coverage for everybody, and there was a lot of places to move around and get to places, and there wasn't any real difficult places that you could turtle up and make the game stall and take a long time. So maps were, Capital Ruins was the best map, the longest fights, and everything was pretty good there. And also balance-wise for stats and actual items, you'll definitely want to reach endgame before you jump into PvP. The stats are normalized, but you'll have different set bonuses that you'll want to find different gear, and then you'll want the different mods. So you'll get like a 20% larger magazine, and if you just jump into PvP when you can at around level 5, you'll kind of get dominated by the other people who actually have the different perfect set bonuses, plus all the mods on the gear and the different stuff like that. So hit level 30, finish the game, get a big amount of gear to pick from, and then you'll be able to play pretty normalized at that point into PvP. So good there, I guess. And another little interesting thing for the Division 2 is there is a patch coming, and it looks like there was FOV sliders mentioned. So that will be good for PC. Let's see if we can find that. Control F, FOV. So that will be good for some PvP if you want to. That would technically lower FPS just a little bit. So that would be pretty interesting. Okay, not gonna lie, I was not expecting an FOV slider to be added, but I'm so happy that this works. F field of view will be added. So that is pretty good for Division 2 if you again want to get even more field of view and be able to see around corners even better. If you get that mega wide monitor, you'll be super overpowered at that point. And that's pretty much all the Division 2 benchmarks we have. And the 1660 cards, all the 60 cards did pretty well for the new tiers, and that's your FPS if you're looking for the 144 hertz monitor and FPS. So you got your answers, and now we will have another episode tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific with some more tech and games, and we have Lulu with some thumbs up and some robot and alien faces. I'm not sure what that has to do with Division 2, but cool. And with that, we'll be signing out. Pew 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 pew.